confidence. I want you to have confidence in our competence. Our primary litigator is Michael Watts. He's a litigator from Texas. If we end up going to trial, he'll be admitted to the state of California by a process called pro hoc vice, meaning the courts will let him be to represent cases for that case and that case alone. That's just the process. We do, by law, however, have to have a California attorney on staff or leading the case, and in this case, it's Doug Boxer. Some of it you have connected in Sacramento, well connected in D.C., but with deep roots to California, and he genuinely cares about this community and California in general. And then we want to make, and then of course me, my name is Rico Reyes. I am an attorney from Texas. I'm not licensed by the state of California. However, I can still give you client intake, help you organize your evidence, and answer questions about, general questions about the case. So I will continue to be an ongoing resource for anybody here who wants it. And then the third thing is that I wanted to share is clarity on the way forward, and that's part of what these things are offered to provide. If any of you are still shopping around for a law firm, ask yourself why you're here, and does the other law firms that you're looking at, do they provide what we're providing to you? And the answer is probably not, because we look at the community, we evaluate the unique space that we offer. So again, compassion, confidence, clarity on the way forward, because there's so many different needs that you're going to have, whether it's this rebuilding 101 type of conference and workshop, or if it's a small business loan type of workshop that you need to talk about ways to get your business up and running again, or even insurance seminars. We have an insurance week coming up, and some of you are still working through that lengthy, burdensome list. Some of you are still fighting even to get the adjuster to listen to you, to show up to your house. We have an informal insurance advocate on staff full-time, and who's going to dedicate a week to doing nothing but assisting our clientele, and then and other folks who come in. Of course, we have to prioritize our clients, but the truth is we're going to help people who walk into the door, and that's the truth. And then the final thing that you get when you become part of LA Fire Justice is community. You're already the heart of the community because you have deep roots here, you lived here, you grew up here, you built a house here. But as you look around, you're going to see, oh my gosh, I really have entered a community of doers and builders and people who are committed to rebuilding back together. And that's what we want to help you do. So thank you for coming. We appreciate you. Again, my name is Rico Reyes, and I'm happy to help anybody who reaches out. Thank you.
Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Rico. All right. Once again, after 8 weeks, you guys figured out who I am. We're going to skip through that. What I am is we are going to invite everybody on the 6th of September. It's going to be the unveiling of your Community Resource Center. Once again, it is a co-op space for you to use any of the resources, conference rooms, Wi-Fi, printers, meet people, and things of that nature. We have a large partnership formed called Connect Los Angeles, which is UCLA Geffen School of Medicine, University of Riverside, Trauma Resource Institute, Charles Drew University, YMCA, and Los Angeles County Department of Mental Health. And we will be providing a host of resources to a lot of trauma-affected people. Once again, you may not know that you've been traumatized. You may not have ever suffered an issue like this. And the resources there are, of course, free to the community. It's going to be on all levels. Some will be clinical, some will be group, some will be art therapy, some just meditation, things of that nature. We want to let you know those resources exist, and they will be there full-time, and including a mobile mental health clinic that we'll provide on staff. We are working on dental, believe it or not. UCLA may give us free dental. I know that sounds weird for this thing, but I said I'll take it. We also have a partnership with UCLA School of Architecture, so we will be conducting a series of symposiums and info sessions. As you guys, those who've come, it's been 8 weeks of trying to teach you, not trying to make you do one thing or the other, but empower you with knowledge so when you leave here, you feel more confident, you feel more inspired, and you know what exists out there and what to protect yourself from. because our goal was always to protect you, because you only have one chance at this rebuild. You don't have a chance to hire a wrong contractor or to lose your money or make bad decisions. So, lastly, of course, is the rebuild process. We've interviewed, vetted, and put together who we've felt assembled some of the best builders, architects, civil engineers in the business. We've negotiated them at scale along with a series of different negotiations to collective purchasing materials, including MSI, Anderson, Builder Surplus. We've brought you guys Brio, Solar, things of that nature. So everyone is welcome to purchase at scale. The idea is solely for the purpose of getting everybody rebuilt back and beautiful, and to provide you alternatives, because if you're scared, you're slightly undershired, you might start looking at different types of homes. You may not need to do that if you do it correctly. And so the goals here for these last 8 weeks was to empower you with that information, to empower you with the fight of where legislation needs to be moved, to empower you with additional clauses in your construction contract so that you should ask for your contractor to put these terms in. Okay? Along the way, over this last 8 weeks, what have we done? Okay? Step one, we began. Throughout this process, we have brought architects, Harvard degrees, local architects, builders, the planning department, building and safety, consumer affairs, the tax assessors. I want you guys to remember all that we've learned and take that with you as you go through your rebuilding process. We went through permits, plans, property lines. We talked about money. We had the SBA here. We went through the entire process of how to get the SBA, how if you missed the SBA, and how you could get those funds released through the SBA. We've also brought on different additional finance companies that says, hey, if you're short, this may be a process. We are still working with another group that is possibly going to help some people, may not be you, and hopefully it's not, that may be short $100,000 or $200,000. And that's the difference between them building back in Altadena and continuing to benefit from their suit against Edison, because there's a big difference if you sell your home and if you rebuild. And what that really is as follows. If you decide to sell and you do settle with Edison, they're gonna pay you only for the pre-fire value. So if your home was worth $1 million, you get $1 million. If you stay and build, they're gonna have to pay you for the replacement costs, which we all know is a lot more. May cost you 1.6, 1.7, possibly $2 million. So if you do sell because you're stuck, you're at a disadvantage. So we're helping to find some creative additional bridge funding gaps so at least you could survive till hopefully you settle. Now, none of these settlements are guaranteed, but what we do know is that they've accepted liability, and we also know that, you know, they're willing to settle because they put out statements that they're willing to settle. So the goal is to help you build and get back into your community and get back the soul of this town. So let's get into it, okay? Your 10 essential steps is gonna be your survey. We've had surveys here speak to you guys. A soil report. You don't wanna build on an environmental disaster, okay? So we had a soil testing town hall. Right now, if you drop off your soil at Grocery Outlet or one of these locations, the USC, UCLA, and now Department of Public Health will test that soil and tell you what's in it. And then we also presented to you ways to remediate that soil. Some of it's gonna be organic, different ways of dealing with it, but at least you know you're not building a home where your kids are gonna play in the grass with an environmental issue, okay? We've discussed debris removal and clearance. Most of you guys have probably passed that point, but just to recap, the Army Corps of Engineers will only take, you know, within the burned surface area, and they're gonna leave a bunch of things behind, okay? The question is will you be able to claim that through your insurance? And you guys all understand what, and it looks like a debris removal versus a tree removal, and how you craft your argument to the insurance company on why it's a debris removal. Okay, we discussed it budgeting, okay? When we had the planning and building and safety, we discussed what like for like is, what the 10% is, and ad nauseum, we have discussed how things would get assessed. We did it to this point where we got the Los Angeles County assessor here to discuss those things and answer those questions. We discussed the difference between a cellar and a basement. We've discussed what like for like is and how much time you would lose, which was very little. And so we let you know like for like isn't the word of God. It is simply, hey, like for like gets you a few extra things, but the planning department said you might lose a week or two. The reason I bring this up is because I want you to build the home that you want, the home of your dream, the home of your desire, with the architect that you love or with the builder that you love. This doesn't have to be purely a traumatic situation. This could be something that by the time you get past it, you look and turn around and say, I have an absolutely gorgeous home. I have the home that I've always wanted. I have the size of the room I wanted. I always wanted a bigger bathroom. Or my grandkids are moving in. Or now I can age in place, because some people's homes, they may not have been able to die in those homes because it's not built for them to age. But now you have the chance to say, I might die here, and let me build it for me to age and pass this on to the next generation. Altadena is a very generational place. We don't sell in Altadena. We die in Altadena. And that was most of everybody's goals who lived here until it all burned down. So those goals can remain, and your home can be who you are and what you want it to be. Okay? We talked about building your team. Some of the best architects and designers in California have sat here and spoke to you. The team has personally vetted some of the best builders that we thought are in this game. Those that have pre-approved plans ready to go, craft custom builders. And today we have a very special builder who's going to speak today, who we absolutely love. He is from the area and has built throughout Altadena, and he's someone that I really wanted you guys to get exposed to. Okay? We talked about design, development, and floor plans. We had building and safety and planning department talk about the pre-permit reviews and setbacks. We discussed utilities ad nauseum and whether or not Edison is going to pay to bring the lines through if they're going underground, or are we, and how, like SBA said, do we target the additional mitigation in our insurance policies, right? We know there's a possibly 10 to 20% in upgrades that they must pay for, but they don't give it to you unless you ask. So getting these homes solar ready. We've had solar person come out here. Getting solar ready is great, but putting the solar on now is going to be way cheaper, and it may be a demand that you make to your insurance company and say, hey, this is required. It wasn't required when it's built. It's a mitigation. You, State Farm, should pay because I'm have to do it. So when you're talking, $1 million policy, 10, 20% is $100,000 to $200,000 to get those upgrades. The Class A roof, the setbacks, the double pane windows, the ember-proof vents. We talked about defending your homes, how to defend those homes, how to protect those homes. And SBA told you how to get more money from them to defend your home. We also talked about herd immunity. If your home is fire ready and your home is fire ready, well, your home burns, you might protect from burning down the whole town, because we are protecting ourselves by getting our homes fire ready. So there are different little things that aren't that expensive to make your home defensible. Okay? We talked about submitting plans and how to deal with the planning department and which ways to go. And I know a lot of this you may not have to deal with, your architect or your builder will, but I want you to know that this is what they're going through. So if they say, oh, there's a delay, well, maybe there's not a delay. What is causing a delay? Okay? I have a very special guest at the new series we have, and he's a resident who fought through the planning department, and he's going to come and tell you all the tricks of the trade on how to navigate them, and when they say no, how he got them to say yes. He's an incredible guest. He'll be at the next series that we have, but these are things. What we also talked about is collective fighting. Right now, if you add 10%, the tax assessor said, I got to tax you on the next 10%. But he has legislation that if we collectively argue for that 10%, we collectively can make that argument. We collectively let these elected officials know that we're fighting for that 10%. I think that we can get that 10% waived from the tax assessor's office. I also believe that another fight we can do is that there's a bunch of benefits. If your solar is on by December 31st, you're going to get a huge tax credit. Well, I think it's unfair that those who lost our home don't have an opportunity because we don't have a home yet. I think that's another fight that we can win. So there are collective fights that if we put our voice together, there's another lawyer in this room who says, hey, we'll put together workshops on these issues because we have a really good voice. Don't forget, the Olympics are coming. They want us built. And so we have leverage. We have a governor who's probably going to run for president. We have leverage. Hey, have us built. If not, we're going to say you're the worst governor. Have us built, or we're going to protest and block the freeway during the Olympics so that the Olympic coverage isn't a gold medal. It's going to be what happened to us. So we have a lot more power than you think, but collectively is the only way that we could get through this. Okay? Contractor selection. I told you, get 3 bids. Have a clear understanding of what things are. Make sure every inch is in writing. Make sure, you hear these guys say, oh, we'll bill that X dollars to get you to sign, then come find out it doesn't include doors, windows, kitchen cabinets, granite, none of that. So if you have a second bid, then bid the next guy to it. Hey, I like you as a builder. Can you match this bid? I also said that we have clauses drafted by one of the greatest legal minds, who's not a lawyer, that should go into a disaster contract and demand that your contractor put those in to protect you, okay? And then, these are gonna be construction phases. I think we're not ready for that right now, but just so you know, foundation, framing, roughings, inspections, and finishing, so that you know that process, you know what those timelines look like, all right? And then, of course, the final step, Grandma cooks, you invite me over, I get to see your new kitchen, and everybody's happy. All right, so let's get this thing going. It's been a great 8 weeks. So glad you guys stuck it through. And what we're gonna start with is, gentlemen, the fire happens, and we wake up, we don't have a mayor, we don't have a city council, we don't know nothing about disaster, we don't know nothing about recovery, we don't know nothing. And this guy lands into Altadena. I run into him, and I realize that there are actually professionals who spent their whole life in disaster recovery, who knew all the answers to all the questions I've had. He's come here from Kentucky. He's been doing this for 14 years, has been in nearly every natural disaster, and literally has an answer for every single question that you may have. And I wanted to get him on last week, so I promised him I'd get him on early. He's an amazing person, one of the best guys I ever met, and he smokes really good cigars. So give it up for disaster expert Demetrius Gray.
Hey. Well, Freddy knows how to amp people up. It's, something I'm not quite accustomed to. But first off, my heart is certainly with you all. And as it relates to this particular event, almost 300 of your other neighbors are the folks that I work with and represent. And so a little context, I have been in the recovery space for a really long time. I was actually an accountant. That's how do you make your way into disaster recovery? I was an accountant for, if anybody's ever worked with ServPro, and then really started work there, but was really impacted by a very early natural disaster in my life, a tornado that hit my town in Madisonville, Kentucky in 1995, an EF4 tornado. And so that then proceeded into, this is kind of interesting. And so, this is my, I think, third mega fire. I was here in 2018 for the Woolsey fire in Malibu, working on behalf of Chubb and AIG. And then I was in the Marshall fire in Louisville, Colorado 2 years ago. And really specifically using my expertise as a finance and accounting guy to understand how do we actually speed up recovery. And so I took those skills to the tech world and built a few tech companies, sold those to a few insurance companies. And so to your point around how does he have all the answers, I don't have them all, but I do have a lot of them related to just the experience I've had across the number of major natural disasters that we've seen. And unfortunately, there are so many. My mother used to ask me, she'd say, how are you gonna even have any work to do? And so then, of course, we've seen just the sheer number of events throughout the country. And so, I think you've heard a lot, right? You've been inundated with a lot, and these town halls are important, but you know that it's this sort of one-on-one thing, right? Your specific set of facts, your specific details that really are going to influence your recovery. And so when Freddy talks about building a team and really getting some people in your corner. Really what's important is like you guys have obviously chosen an attorney. You know, you're starting to build out what that team looks like. And so one of the earliest things that you can do in this process is think about, you know, and I think it's the thing that most people generally kind of gloss over, right? Because there's so much to do and we're getting so much information, but understanding how you're going to make decisions and coming up with a really, really solid decision-making framework in writing, right? Okay, here are the things that matter to me the most, right? And here's how I'm going to make decisions throughout this process when you're confronted with so many decisions to make. Because you'll find yourself, and I'm sure some mental health professionals have talked to you about this already, being overwhelmed by the sheer number of decisions that you've got to make, right? And so it's really important that very early on, and your contractor will probably be very upset with you, like, why aren't you making the decision, right? It's because you really need to be able to consistently come back to, okay, what are those 4 or 5 things that I really am concerned about that were issues for me? If it checks this box, this box, this box, this box, and this box, then it's good, and that's why I'm moving forward in this direction. You need to write those things down, and you need to consistently go back and look at them to remind yourself, okay, these are the 5 things that we said mattered, right? Because what'll happen if you don't is you'll get to, you know, a place where, oh, there's all these decisions and here's all the things and blah, 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 you know, and I'm overwhelmed, right? So I'm not going to do anything, right? And so, and unfortunately, in environments like this, that costs money. It costs a lot of money, right? And so I want to hit on one other thing that, and I'm here all the time. I fly back and forth to Kentucky, but you know, I think one of the things that I have consistently said, and I've had to remind our builders, that this is not building on an average Tuesday, right? I've had to remind our county officials, this is not building on, in what we consider in the disaster industry, blue skies. This is not that. It's building under very specific circumstances where there's a third-party payer, right? Some of you are relying on settlement money to come in the future. Some of you are relying on insurance companies to release that money. Some of you are waiting on the SBA. There's some complexity here that's not like just going and getting a construction loan and building a house, right? And so what that means, and oh, by the way, add on top of that, a lot of your neighbors are doing the exact same activity at the exact same time. And then you got some, you know, across the few highways neighbors who are also doing the same thing at the exact same time. That means that some of the provisions that these general contractors that you have seen, it's really important that you have what we call a disaster addendum to your contract that acknowledges that, hey, this is not the normal thing. There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on because there's specific things that happen that we see in disaster all the time, right? Contractors receive a lot of pressure on their labor force, right? They lose crews of people, happens. Materials are stolen off of job sites. A lot of different things happen, right? And so it's really important that when you go into the contracting process that you're sort of acknowledging that that's going to happen, right? So I don't know if anybody's talked to you about builder's risk insurance. Anybody said anything about it? Your homeowner's insurance policy does not cover this construction phase generally. So you need to go out and get builder's risk insurance today, right? Builder's risk is the risk during the time where the construction phase is actually going on, right? So like you don't have a house yet. Your homeowner's insurance covers that finished house, right? Then cover this phase where there might be lumber on the property and so on and so forth. The builder's risk is what it's defined as. N- you may ask your insurance provider if there is a construction endorsement under your policy. Some of you may have that ability. Most of you will generally not, because most homeowners insurance policies are technically considered what are called, um, uh, the technical term is HO3, right? Or HO5s, right? They're standard form policies. So that's why most of your insurance policies all kind of look the same for the most part, because they follow the HO3 or HO5 standard. Yes. And so depending on your carrier, you may be able to add an endorsement. Most of you will not have that option. Yeah. So because what technically has to happen is what's called subrogation. So your insurance company then goes after the contractor's insurance policy, right, for the money that they're owed. It's very similar to how car insurance works. Yeah. So I think you those are for you to decide, right? Those are the things that, like, generally people will say, well, hey, it's really important that I have the exact same layout that I had before because this was my mother's house, and so in the course of construction they may say, well, you know, a contractor may be encouraging them to downsize, right? And so now that becomes a point of decision that sometimes delays construction, right? Or delays architectural plans or delays. There's all types of things. It's really important for you to sort of sit down and say, what are those things that matter to me the most, right? Because sometimes what you'll find out is that, like, you'll get hung up on one little thing, right? And it's not even related to any of those things that matter, right? And so a lot of times in my work, what we have to consistently do is go back to, okay, first principles. What did we say mattered, right? And being really, really sober and clear about, like, okay, these are the things, right? And it can change, but we're going to acknowledge that, hey, we are changing it, right? This doesn't matter to us as much anymore, right? Based on something that we learned during the process, new information that we got, and so that's how you kind of move through that decision-making framework for yourself, because you will find that, like, hey, this is a little overwhelming, right? How many have felt that already, right? And so, and some of that can be that starting five things is like, one of those rules can be, I gave myself 24 hours to think about it, right? Just a simple rule. Okay, did I give myself enough time to feel like I may, because the contract, hey, you need to make this decision. Okay, hey, I'm gonna need, and that's how you get to the place where, like, whenever you get that agreement, you start looking at that contract. Well, does it give me enough time to actually make that decision? Does it give me the 24 hours that I needed, that I said I needed, to feel comfortable that I thought about it, I slept on it? Those are the sort of things that you should be really thinking about today, and one of those incremental steps that you can take to move you just 1 inch closer to the place where you're going to make those decisions, right? I would say, all in all, there's a lot of things that come up. When you sort of think about that in the context of your team, I think you always got to have somebody on speed dial. How many folks have somebody on speed dial that they're asking questions to already? All right. So, like, LA Fire Justice has a lot of those people already, just so you know. And that's how I got here, because I met them very early on in the fire and was like, hey, you know what? There are people who have a lot of questions, right? And so for some of you, it might be somebody like me. My technical title is I'm a long-term disaster recovery consultant, right? You need to know that those existed, right? But what I really spend most of my day doing is acting as an owner's rep, right? And so I'm also a licensed public adjuster. And so I've been working alongside nonprofits in this community to help them help folks navigate, right? Through like, okay, well, what is this? Does it even make sense? You know, what's true, what's not true, what matters, what doesn't matter. And so you're always welcome to call me on the phone and say, Demetrius, what do you think? What are you hearing? Right? Because it's just about looking at, okay, what's the truth of the thing, right? What's the left? What's the right? Alta Design Works has been really great about looking at contractors and saying, you know, I know you say you can do that, but all the facts don't line up, right? And so there's another place that you can go and sort of say, okay, well, what's the truth of this thing, right? Is it really legit, right? And so I've stood on a lot of dirt at this point with folks who, hey, I got in touch with this person and they say they can do this, and I kind of get there and I'm like, I don't think so. It doesn't pass the smell test, right? Like, maybe we should go slower. And it's okay to go slower, right? I'm giving you permission right now. It is okay to go slow, right?
I have a question about people who are on the council. So we lost our insurance in 7 months for the fire. Now, when we rebuild, do you think there's an opportunity to go shop around for insurance policies, or are you just sort of shuttled on to your plan because of what's happening in our
Well, there are a few states. What I suspect will happen in the state of California is very similar to what's already happened in the state of Florida. So Florida has a very similar structure, and actually I think California got their model from Florida. In Florida, it's called Citizens Insurance. Here it's called California Fair Plan, right? And what ends up happening is that the state will start to stand up more surplus lines carrier. They will still be, it's basically carriers that aren't like your retail carriers like State Farm, Allstate, Nationwide, because it's not likely that they're going to write more policies, right? Now, that can change based on the regulatory environment, but what we suspect is that you'll see more surplus line insurance companies emerge, right? So there will be a market there. Now, whether or not that market will be affordable is another question, right? Normally, premiums, like after Hurricane Maria, it was like 3 times what the insurance cost was pre-Hurricane Maria, as an example. So that's the trend that we normally see. Is it's normally 2 to 3x times the premium that you are accustomed to paying. Surplus lines insurance is basically insurance carriers that do not formally get admitted into your state's regulatory body. So they're taking a lot more risk because they don't get the protections of the Department of Insurance for the state of California. Yeah.
Will our premiums
It's like we're pricing in the risk. Like, to be completely honest, you all pay the same insurance premium as some of you all pay the same insurance premium as I pay in Kentucky, right? Even though the risk profile is completely different. And so what we do is insurers spread the risk across entire markets. And so it isn't just 91001 that's going to see a premium increase. It's the whole of California that will see a premium increase. And then to some extent, the entire nation will see a premium increase as well across their premiums. And so the premium risk is spread across the entire pool. That's the nature of insurance. But it is to say that, like, what you'll see is 2 things, which is like you'll see a reduction in coverage, though. So while you might have insurance, you should be aware that your policy language will start to change. So you'll see a lot of like reductions in the what the words actually say, right? And so, so we call it, the industry calls it policy engineering, right? There's a term for everything, right? But that's effectively what'll happen. And so what you want to do is, like, over the next several years, be very, very cognizant of like those revisions when they come in the mail and they're like, hey, we're changing policy provision X, right? That's a really important point. But I do think, to your point, Freddie, for those of you who are meeting the IBHS standard, I think it's, what's the term here called? It's fireproof standard. The IBHS program is called, one of the builders is going to have to help me. Yeah, it's basically, IBHS is the Institute for Building and Home Safety. It's a consortium of insurance carrier-backed research, and they create standards for what they consider to be insurable, right? And so when you're working with your builders, and somebody's going to find it at some point. I wish I had an assistant. Building and home safety. And so they have a fire standard that they've created. And so your builder will generally build to that. So you've heard, like, you know, no ventilated roof systems. A lot of those standards that you're seeing talked about, those fire hardening standards, are coming from the Institute for Building and Home Safety. And so there are a number of carriers who have already signed on to this standard within California, right? So, like, to your question around whether or not you will be able to get insurance, if you meet that base model standard, you'll absolutely be able to get coverage, because they've already said, hey, build to this standard, we'll insure you, right? And so now there are two different tiers. There's a base tier, and then there's like an extreme tier. Most people aren't going to meet that extreme tier. And so, but what you should also know is this tier matters, and I'll find out and get it to you guys before the night's out. But what you should know is that, like, this is a very similar thing that happens in hail and wind prone states. And so what happens, and has happened in states like Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, is that what they do is they basically put an incentive program together to incentivize property owners, policyholders, to build to that standard. And then policy discounts are then tied to that standard. And so it's really important that you actually complete the standard, execute it well, and then basically register that you actually did those things. So that then your carrier's like, oh, well, hey, this is IBHS compliant, cool, right? You've met the standard for what an insurer views as being insurable within the state. Does anybody know the name of the program? I'm gonna find out, okay. But, you know, all in all, Freddie didn't give me really great talking points. What else should we talk about? Codes? Talked about some of those things already. You guys have clarity there? So some of those things relate to, and there's a template that we can send to you. The disaster addendum specifically speaks to the provisions. We tend to recommend the AIA 105 contract or the AIA 115. And these are standard forms generated by the American Institute for Architects for the standard building contract, as an example. AIA 105, AIA 115, right? So if you're looking at, like, well, is this a good contract? Is it not? Right? Those are the two contracts that we generally look to say, okay, well, does it have the elements in it that we're looking for? And so the American Institute for Architects has already done all this work. You can find them on their website. Don't pay the $149 to get the PDF. I've already got it, right? And so that's the basis in which we start, those two forms. And then we say, okay, well, the one thing that the AIA has not done, the AIA has not promulgated any guidance related to disaster recovery. So they have not acknowledged at all that, hey, there might be something different about this set of circumstances, right? And so the addendum speaks to some of the things I already talked about. well, what happens if, for instance, the material is stolen that I just purchased? What happens if ICE raids happen on my street and the contractor loses his workforce? What happens if all the ifs, right? And so what happens if during construction the county changes some of the rules, right? Like those are the sort of things that like you're sort of using the addendum for these sort of outlandish things that like you thought would never happen, but because it's a wildfire, it might, right? And so what we're hoping for is a framework to go ahead and address those things on the front end, because again, remembering that it's not building as usual, there's some strange thing. Well, what happens if there's a work stoppage that isn't weather related, right? Because that most construction contractors, they'll address weather related delay, but it doesn't address what happens if something goes on with SoCal Edison and we can't get utilities for the property, right? These other considerations. The other thing that we do in the addendum is we acknowledge that this is a third-party payer scenario, right? So where a contractor would generally put a lot of pressure, hey, you need to pay me, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, we say, you know what? You need to acknowledge that, hey, that money might be sitting in an escrow account at the mortgage company, and me, Mr. Homeowner, I don't have control over how quickly they send that check or what they do, but we'll cooperate. We'll work with you to make sure that you get paid in the timely fashion and do the things that need to be done. But the reality is that we have only so much control, right? Completely different story if you're sitting with all the money in your checking account, right? Pay your contractors, do what you're supposed to do, right? The other thing that we also tend to want to address is like lien risk, right? We really want to make sure that like contractors are doing the right thing as it relates to liens on your property, right? For this particular community where a lot of people own their property free and clear, right? It's really, really important. And in scenarios where, particularly if you have a reverse mortgage, we want to be careful there too, because there are certain things about a lien that can trigger adverse effects for that reverse mortgage that we want to be cognizant of. And so that addendum addresses those other things, so that in the unlikely event that you find yourself in court with your contractor, it's not as if we're talking about a scenario where, hey, this is like just real building on in a blue sky scenario. We're really talking about, no, this person was impacted by the Eaton Canyon fire. Here's why we were having to rebuild our house, and acknowledging that that's actually the circumstances in which we're dealing with. Now, what I'll tell you is that, from what I've seen throughout the rest of the country, most courts are in your favor generally, because everybody recognizes that you didn't expect to be doing this, right? And so, but you want to make sure that like your contractor's on the same page with that conversation. So, ready?
Advantages and disadvantages of adding a performance bond or escrow into your agreement with the contractor?
I think the question functionally is really around size of project, is how I thought about it. If you see a lot of scenarios where you see a construction contract that has a lot of draws built into the contract, that's what generally how I've done it, is like if I see a scenario where I'm not sure about the financial stability of the contractor, I will generally ask for a performance or payment bond. In a scenario where, and it's certainly permissible. Don't think that surety bond that is at the Register of Contractors is the thing, right? It's $25,000 or $50,000 or whatever it is. It's not sufficient, and it doesn't provide you any real coverage. While I'm not encouraging you to get a performance or a payment bond, I would say that I would sort of take it on a case-by-case basis based on how that contractor's contract is structured, right? Because obviously, listen, especially if they've taken a lot of draws, right? Then I really would want to know that, like, hey, I've got some ability to pull those dollars back, and that's what a payment bond or performance bond would be for.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, typically what you want to add to is both consider all these like this bond
$1 million insurance policy, they should have a minimum insurance. Typically, it really works too, but a lot of things can happen in construction job sites, right? Someone falls, someone ends up at the hospital, who's responsible for what? So at the bare minimum, everybody should be, licensed insured.
So we're talking more specifically to a project where you have to pre-order materials, and in that pre-order materials, they may ask, let's say, $500,000, but you don't wanna release that $500,000 to like put that money into like escrows and all.
I'd have to know the specific set of circumstances to advise.
Generally, a $500,000 expense. Yeah, I would say generally no. I would not just readily release those dollars, because I would expect for a contractor who's doing a project at that scale to have supply lines of credit that could support the delivery of that, right? Getting trade credit is not that difficult, and that's what I would expect. Yeah. I don't think you should get in the habit of financing construction costs for the purposes of your build. Generally, you should allow your general contractor to do that for you, and then they should release their lien rights once you pay them. All right, thank you guys. Thanks.
Demetrius, I will chime in on that. What we do is we do recommend an escrow, okay? It protects you and it protects the contractor. So when he's advancing costs, he's not worried because that money's in an escrow. Two, sometimes we need to protect this money from ourselves. Bad trip to Vegas, pay off, the new car just came out, things of that nature. So sometimes you need to protect yourself to protect this amount for your home. Two, in our contracts that we recommend is draws upon completion of the inspection. So foundation, signed off, release the funds. The next thing is a exit clause. So you fall in love with the contractor, now you don't fall in love. All right, let's complete this milestone, release the funds, and now release this contract. You have all your money, you have your foundation, you find a new contractor. Okay, so you don't want a situation where you're trying to get out of it. Now you're looking at a breach of contract issue. So milestones, the escrow is great because he sees that the money is there, but you also see that the money is there. And you sign off on when you get those funds released. Because once again, a lot of us only have one chance to build this thing. We don't have chances to have a bad contractor, get in litigation, the funds are all tied up, and this is not the situation you want. So the escrow helps that way, having those signed off releases go, and making sure that you're protecting yourself. So this leads on to another guy, and today is Contractor Conundrum. I know we didn't get too much in contractor, but a lot of you have been coming consistently, so we kind of want to do a wrap up. But we have another contractor who's joined the Alta Design Works, fully vetted, absolutely love him. We love his work. He's from Altadena. His lives in Sierra Madre. He's also a survivor of the fire, but more so, just one of them old school contractors. The craftsmanship, just the attention to detail, building with materials that he believes in, and I just wanted to ensure that at Alta Design Works, there's going to be different contractors for different folks. We've discussed the pre-planned guys, and I thought they're the best of the best. We've discussed guys who build incredible, 12, 1,600 square foot homes. But we wanted to ensure that there's a handcraft man, and we really adore this next builder. And come on up, Vic Labad from Labad Builders. Now, we'll warn you, we've had incredible architects who speak well and incredible designers who speak well. We've had multiple contractors, and they aren't the most articulate, although he is. I just want to give you a heads up that they love to build, and they leave it up to guys like me and Demetrius and Benny to do the talking. So, Vic Labad and I will be your guide through this.
Thank you, Freddy. My name is Vic Labad. I own Labad Construction with my son. It's a family-owned business. How I started in construction business, I used to own a body shop. I had a house in Altadena on Woodbury. I hired a contractor to build an addition on my house for 500 square feet. 6 months later, I called him off and I told him, buddy, what do I owe you? When can we stop this project? I wrote him a check. I said, thank you very much. Goodbye. I ended up leaving work. That's how good I am. And I think that's how good that helped me out in my construction business. So like I said, I fell in love with it. I went out and I got a permit for handyman's license from City of Pasadena. So went to Eagle Rock School, construction school. Then we went and got our license. So we started building houses, and I have a couple of pictures that we built. And Pasadena, actually I'm building 4 houses as we speak. You guys are welcome to come, take a walk. Give me a call, take a walk. We'll go to house. I'm building a house one of them, it's about 9,000 square feet, 3,000, 4,000, 2,000 from scratch. These are our jobs. This job was in Glendale, and I have some before and after pictures on here just to give you an idea. There's no job small or large for us. We take them all. And the reason I fell in love with this business, I like people. I'm on my job site every day. I don't sit in my office. I go visit my jobs every day, and I'm always on top of getting inspections done and being there as the inspector walks through the jobs. I have my son that helps me right now. That's a lot of help. I used to do this all by myself. So like you see, we built houses, and the most important for you is, Freddy, I think you have a copy of my quote that I give out. And a little bit later, you see the way I write my estimates. I write them like the way we write body shop estimates, detailed. I go by foundation, framing, labor, material, cost, completely separate. My estimate, I've written estimates, and 96 to 97% I get my jobs. 97%, I guarantee you that I will take your job. The reason is every single item that I'm putting on your house is detailed. I go room by room. Let's just say bathroom, I put in the shower hot mop for the shower door, tiles, allowances, what will be cost for your floor tires, wall tires, labor, everything would be like a blue view. And at the end, we go room by room, fireplace, living room, granite, kitchen cabinets, countertop, they're all completely itemized. Countertop, they're all completely itemized. And what you see, this house, this is in South Pasadena that I built a couple years ago. And this is it. This is what it turned out to be. If you wanted to go back, yeah, that's the original house. And this is what it turned out. And we have a couple of pictures inside as well. We do custom work. Yeah. This is some of our projects. That's that same house that you were looking before and after. So the most important for you guys is not the contract. Contract is contract. A contractor will come in, first thing, the relationship that you're going to see that contractor on your job site and your properties. He's not just going to write you an estimate and hire subcontractors and build your house. We're on top of our projects. That's the most important for you, that you would have the relationship with your contractor. That's more important than any contract that you write. Second of all, every estimate that you get, you gotta make sure detailed. You gotta ask your contractor, let's just say, for example, for the installation, R30 ceilings installation, R15, R19, floor joist, whatever. It's completely detailed. That's the most important. And technically what I do is, once I'm finished with my project, we get invited to Christmas parties and family. We become family with my customers. We start going out together as a family. This is what I mean when we go room by foundation, demo, materials, labor, and living room, engineered flooring, whatever. It's all materials, how much I allow you for tiles, how much I allow you for flooring, what you're paying me for labor, what you're paying me for material. Let's say your allowance on tiles, engineered flooring, $529, and you come up, you say, I found the flooring that $7 that I really like. So you have allowance $529. But if you come back and you say, you know what, there is a special on this flooring, they're $1.99. That, what we'll do is, we'll adjust the pricing on your estimate. And one thing about this estimate that you get, we'll know what you decide to do and not to do. You don't have to call me and say, hey, Vic, well, we decided not to do this, not to do this. What you do is just subtract what you don't want to do. It will give you the total. You have no conflict with the contractor. Oh, I did not charge you $5 for flooring. It was just $1.99. We're charging you that down. Why? Take it down. I don't like it. The customer will not see. I don't care what customer sees or don't see. I don't want it. Take it down. So I've been to a lot of framers, drywall guys, plumbers, painters. I've chose the best, and I know I have the best crew there is. So when you ask me how many employees I have, if you want to be maybe about 75, that 90% of the time they're working on my projects. Yeah. We have a designer, but I'm not a design builder. Technically, I'm building a house for a designer right now. And she says, Vic, you're the only one that I listen to. So I've been around. I've been around designers and been to showcase houses. So I've been around. So no, to answer your question, I'm a general contractor. Go ahead. Yes, they have what they're called is what was it? Certain height, you cannot exceed that by law, and it depends on different cities as well. I'm doing a project right now. Like I said, I have 4 projects doing right now. One in San Gabriel, one in San Marino. They're both two sisters, and the city came out, they want fire sprinklers installed on their property. One of them has to one of them has to sign up with the fire department to monitor. They need to put an alarm, about $79 to $140 a month, and we would have to install a separate alarm for the fire department.
So I found out from Captain Barker's office that as of September the 2nd or 3rd, next week, they're having a big meeting with the county to change some regulations and some other information. I don't know if you're aware of that. So
I'm aware of the meeting, I don't know what
Yeah.
the changes are gonna be.
Exactly, and that's why when you're dealing with your contractors right now, I mean, we put ours on hold because we didn't want him to go forward, and all of a sudden everything gets changed and goes back, because you know how that is, going back there, so.
Yeah, and like Demetrius said, and like we've been saying, this is not a race, like.
Right.
Develop, because things do change, and laws have changed since the fire, whether it was, you know, demanding solar, now being solar ready, whether it's waiving the permit fees and not having a permit fees, so, the people that have come spoken here have seemed very pro-resident, very pro getting it done. Even the assessor was really lenient on how he intends to assess. So that garage is not, even though, let's assume that they do add it to the square footage, hypothetically they do, he's not going to assess it as that. He's going to take it on a case-by-case basis to determine that assessment. But as long as you make the arguments, a lot of them are just gonna get this done. We gotta build 10,000 structures. So we can't keep screwing residents who have lost everything and try to nail them on something.
And a little information for everybody is that we lost our house, my son lost his, my mother-in-law lost her house. Our son was up on Mount Low, and he had his plans, you know, with the county, they're going through everything, and his neighbor said, hey, do you mind if we take a look at your plans, because we're almost had like the same houses. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem, we're doing really good. And the next thing he found out is that he checks every day what the status is, and all of a sudden it was on hold. He's like, well, what happened here? Then he finally found out is that the neighbor called to complain because his deck that he has in the back, she says, and she lost her house too, so nothing's there. And she said, oh, when I look out my kitchen window, his deck is gonna be blocking my view. And so then the county said, hey, wait a second. Well, how, she didn't even have any plans. So the moral of the story is on that one is, if your neighbor has said, hey, can I take a look at your plans? No, don't even show anybody your plans.
Unless you have approved permits.
Exactly, approved permits, then fine. But before that, it's just a little word of advice there.
Vic, do you have approved plans right
Yes,
now?
I do.
You do.
Yes. I believe even Pasadena, there is plans online. They're pre-approved, and if you decide to go with those plans, they say it would be much quicker. But tell you the truth, I see what's been going on with the city. Nothing's going to get done quickly. Go ahead. Fire-rated materials like hardy backers and sheet metal. A lot of houses now go with one of my. I think we have a picture of that sheet metal roof. Yeah, go down. Right there. Yes, yeah, both of those right next to each other. Maybe you can see the other one more clear. These are sheet metal roofing. For roofing, I think I love it. It's little more expensive, but long run, it's much cheaper. It lasts much longer, and it's fire rated.
To answer your question, a lot of these things are coming in from your architectural plans and the pre-construction strategies. So when you hand it to the builder, he goes based upon what you want. You want a Class A roof, you want a shingle, you want masonry, other items. So this is the importance of the architect, the structural engineer who give it to him. He's gonna build what you want. You want a tiki roof, as long as it's up to code, he'll put a tiki roof. So the builder's job is to build what you ask of him, you know? And his specialty is, once again, you have your architectural plans that you like, you come to a craft custom builder.
So if we're wanting, for example, to meet the idea, would be something we focus with our architect or our designer on, not our builder?
Yes, yes.
So
Builders-
builders come last. Architects is where everything happens.
When it comes down to me, and I'll just build your house accordingly. And on your plans, it would have SKU numbers, the numbers of shingles, the color, the brand of the doors, windows that we're using. When it comes to us as a contractor, I'm just going to be honest with you, I just follow the plan. I just build it. The difference between one contractor, the other contractor, detail.
Mention how detailed you are in your estimates. One thing I think we're all dealing with is code upgrades, ordinance and law coverage, and what I certainly am being told by our insurance company is that has to be very detailed in the estimate from the contract.
No one is going to give you any estimate the way I do my quotes. No one would do it. Say no, but 99% they'll put down building 2,000 square feet house, kitchen square foot, this and that. The way I do it is I go room by room. If I'm changing your door panel, I would say door panel. If I'm changing the frame, pre-hung door, I would mention that on my estimate. Plus, I would mention the door hinges, the door mechanism, everything itemized. So at the end and middle of the job, you do not call me and say, Vic, how come you didn't do this? I thought you would, this was part of it. I thought, what's part of it? What's part of it is what you see on my estimate. And go ahead.
I'll answer that. So when you make those mitigation upgrades, whether it's to the SBA or to your to get to your insurance policy to get the extra 10-20%, that architect is going to design that in. So it will say Class A roof because you need to get that money for him to build it out. So that will be in your pre-construction plans and your architectural plans, showing the mitigation upgrades, which would be moving to a Class A roof, double pane windows, the ember proof vents and things of that nature, which then you submit in to get that extra money, which then goes then to him to build. The builders are gonna build what you give them. You give them a Class C roof, what are you gonna put on? You give them a Class A roof, what are you gonna put on?
Ferrari.
You know? So the builders is going off of whatever you, the designer, the engineer, and the civil engineer tell him to do. Except unless it's not up to code, then he's gonna turn around and say, hey, this is not up to code, I can't put this up there.
Then one more thing, when court, anytime that code changes, once we have an approved plans, is they cannot change code on us. And once we have plans that they're approved, they're signed off, then if the code changes, their code changes will not affect you.
And I'll chime in on that. There was an ordinance passed by the governor, both building and safety stated the following, that every 3 years they implement the code upgrades. And so this would be the third year with the new code upgrades. However, the fire survivors will only have to comply with the last 3 years of code. So if there is a code upgrade that will come in by time January comes, you still are only having to do code from last 3 years ago, unless it's like some serious, hazard type of issue. But for the most part, as far as code changes, you have going back 3 years, so you don't have to worry about the code changes. And that was an exemption just for us.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and then you can't do it all for free, but you charge the estimate.
No, my estimates are free.
So once again, he's part of the Alta Design Group. So if you guys come to us, like I said, they'll send an engineer, an architect, and a builder to your property to inspect it, to make sure you don't need any retaining walls or move dirt or things of that nature. Then an estimate will be generated based upon the meetings with you, the type of home you want, the design. You're not going to get free architectural plans. You'll get a general idea. If you're comfortable with that and you want to proceed forward, then at that point, you know, you can get into contract with them, and through Alta Design Works, you would contract direct with the contractor. The thing that we've done was negotiated to get you a much deeper discount because we're helping them build to scale. So we tell them and say, look, generally you make your money on a home. Well, make your money on 4 or 5 homes and spread that out. In addition, purchase through our reduced costs and materials and things of that nature, and input those discounts to the homeowner or give them an upgrade. So, you know, if I get in him a better door for $200 versus the regular door, use the better door. It's here, so they get better doors. And these doors and things you'll be able to look at and select and pick.
It was
Engineer, architect, and contractor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everything that you have is the contractor's payment line item as well, what you get per job for $100,000.
So we at Alta Design Works are going to have crafted agreements which will have those disaster clauses in it. We advocate for the residents. I don't advocate on their behalf. So I'm always beating these guys up. As a matter of fact, after these series, we've gotten a lot of feedback from outside contractors who weren't too happy with us informing you guys of things that you need to know. So our job is to ensure that you are protected, and that's why we're putting exit clauses. If you don't like Vic halfway through, then you're going to be able to get out of the agreement. So there's going to be earmarks, and there's going to be an agreement. When it gets signed off and you agree, that money gets released. And essentially, there's a series of micro contracts. At the end of every release, you get to both release each other from the agreement. Make sense? So that you've gotten, let's say, framing is done and completed, now you're done with Vic for whatever reason, you get to move on off of your agreements. And I forced all the contractors to work with us, all the architects to work with us to agree to those type of terms that they generally wouldn't agree to in regular type of construction. No, just a one-way release. No, just a one-way release. Because what we didn't want was, yeah. If we get tired of you, we're like, hey, this guy's enough. So
Before we sign that release, we'll make sure we'll have lunch together in a good faith.
I believe that this is a team you got to build around you. You know what I mean? It's first off, you're traumatized, so you're making rough decisions, and two, you really got to love your architect and your builder. You really got to have faith in them. And what I don't want is you to stay married to someone who's going to build your retirement, where you're going to spend most of every moment of your life is going to be in that home with a builder that you're not happy with. So we want to make sure that you guys have opportunities to exit. Now, we've done our job. I mean, we got really the best of the best. I mean, some other contractors believe they're the best of the best, and they're probably outstanding. But these are the ones that we just happen to like and have agreed to work with us in building this framework. But the truth of the matter is you better love your team. You really do, because it's who's building your future. It's something you're going to leave your children. Most of us, you know, at this point, these aren't investment homes. I mean, some of them are, but this is where you're going to sleep every night. You're going to have your kid's graduation and your first grandchild. And so this is very, very important to us that you build a dream home.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I got it.
What is the average cost per square foot? I know it'll be around what materials, let's say to
Just shell.
An
You mean-
aver-
you mean
just a shell.
Just shell, no kitchen cabinets,
But
no
do you
bathroom.
yeah,
Okay.
no, just a shell, just the framing to the no finishes.
No finishes. It all depends on your square footage. If I'm building you 10,000 square feet, let's say charging you $100 per square feet. But if I'm building you 80 square feet, it all depends. Just a shell.
Just a shell
You're
with
looking
wood
about
and
a couple 100,000, 200,000.
per square foot.
But I mean, okay, well, shell. We're talking about drywall. We're talking about plumbing. Are you talking shell framing, foundation framing only, or you're talking about drywall, plumbing,
So she,
insulation?
I know what she's talking about.
Okay.
She's talking about foundation, framing, drywall, electrical, plumbing. She's not talking about kitchen cabinets, doors, windows.
We're
and
talking
finishes.
about siding, stucco, roofing material.
Yes.
Couple thousand, couple hundred.
So where I believe we're going to be at is it's less than 450 a square foot. And that includes washing machine,
Yes.
dryer, everything except your furniture.
And your bed.
And what? No furniture. So just that between 250 to 350?
Very close to.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. About 250 to 300. 300.
So
Every
what
house-
you would do is you get a free estimate, let them kind of look at what you got because you have different homes and different elevations. There's one guy in Altadena, he put, and I'll just tell him now, he spent $350,000 for his foundation because the way his home was elevated. So it's kind of unfair, and that's why we send out the the engineers and things of that nature, because there's some retaining walls that may cost you $100,000, and so all of a sudden you tell them, hey, you build it at $200 a square foot. Some homes can. The beauty about what we're going to do is you're going to get an actual bid with everything, and then you can say, hey, give me two bids, one with the shell, knowing where your home sits and where the elevations are, because in Altadena we live in a mountain. It's not like Texas where we kind of have an idea of what it looks like.
And second of all, what matters is your soil report. If your soil, a foundation engineering foundation, you gotta go 3 feet instead of 18 inches, for example. Every house is different. Every location is different. You need to have all of the specs right in front of you before you give it out a code.
What if you're using 100% non-combustible materials, like building only out of concrete and rebar? Can you do that with no wood?
Concrete, I mean, you can have concrete slab floor rebars, yes, but
like
in California, no.
100%.
You will not be able to build concrete walls.
Here is a non-combustible expert.
So to get hi, how are you guys? To get a non-combustible home, it's all the materials combined that get you to that level. And there's some materials that may make sense, and there's some materials that may not make sense. So he could be using wood, timber frames, or he could be using, let's say, metal frames. But the foundation, as he said, can be concrete. But for you to go, and also he has to take into consideration your budget and your feasibility, right? So you may want a non-combustible home that you saw in Miami that's completely concrete, but that may not be the case here on a hilltop in there. It's
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not possible. Correct.
so instead of rebar, you would just change elements of framing, right? So you would change elements of framing. Let's say to an LGS, which is a light gauge steel component, right? Which is non-combustible, non-mold, non-warping, non-termites, recyclable. And then the materials they combined with that add to that element of non-combustible. But that also depends on, you can go Rolls-Royce or you can go Honda. So it just depends on your budget, but it can be done. But as far as like you said with concrete, that's not feasible and that won't get approved.
But everybody that needs to be on there, subcontract, everybody's there, and you have access to that. It's super transparent. So you get to see schedules, you get to see budgets, you get to see if there's a change order, you get to sign off on everything. All the phases are there. So we want to keep it super transparent for you guys because that's what you deserve. Now, if there's any questions you guys have in the future, it could be whenever. We're not hiding. We are here. We've been here for the many months. And wherever we're going, the new place, and thank you to Fire Justice for letting us, use the place for a while. Yeah, they deserve a round of applause. Thank you, guys. We're not hiding. We're not doing any little pop-ups and then disappearing. Everyone knows where we are. Please grab one of these. Come to the unveiling. This is an actual building. We're not, we're not hiding. Here's where we are. You can find us anytime. We're not gonna run, take money, and be like, yeah, go buy. We're boom, gone. No, you can find us 24/7. So that has gained a lot of trust in the community. Thank you, obviously, to Freddy and the Altadena Coalition, who just been there since day one, and I've just seen the trust in the community get bigger and bigger. So we're not gonna hide. We're very easy to find, and yeah, we'll wrap it up with, we're by your side. Please feel free to ask us any questions, and we'll be glad to share with you. The initial step is set up an appointment. I know I've seen a couple faces already coming in next week, but we're here for you guys, and start somewhere, anywhere.
Thank you, guys.
All right, before you went, I got one last quick guest. We've secured a new dealing for the community. I'd like to bring up Jenny White. She's going to give you a couple minutes. But like I said, we've done deals with Anderson and Brio and MSI, and we have a new partner in this adventure.
Yeah, thank you for leaving me till the end when everybody really wants to go home, including myself. I'm Jenny White. I also live in Altadena. It's been my favorite neighborhood in my 25 years of living in the Southern California area. I came down for college when I was a couple years ago, and and I went to Claremont, and then I found Pasadena, and then from Pasadena I found Altadena, and I was like, yes, this is so much like Portland. I can hike, and I can run, and I can walk, and it was gorgeous. So I am so down to rebuild. Freddy, put an FR in front of that. Told you I'm tired. Freddy is one of my big heroes. So proud to just know you and watch you do this. So I am bringing together my brokerage to partner with all of you as homeowners, renters, whatever position you're in. We do any level of home service that pertains to the following: home internet, home security, ADT Brinks, all your major internet, cell phone, solar. I run a solar brokerage. We do residential solar as well as new construction. So very dialed in with what's happening obviously here locally, as well as what's going on. Going to be helping you, I hope, with the agenda of securing our 30% tax credit past the end of this year. God willing, I work with different leadership involved with the CEC, that's the California Energy Commission, as well as the CPUC. So I will be working very hard to make sure that if people do want solar and you are not able to get that contract ready and up and running before the end of the year, that we can help you, and that's something that we're going to work on in the future. So what we do from our perspective is we make sure that we get you the absolute best price. It costs you nothing. You can contact me. I'll give you my information. If you want to text me, you can text me. I have different experts on my team to handle each level of that service.